Well, hello. It's time for Mumamo. This is your weekly program dedicated to mutants and masterminds. The only superhero TTRPG ever created. That's it. Just the one.
Which is it's a real shame because the genre's been around for almost 100 years.
I know, right?
You would think that someone would capitalize on that, but no.
No,
They
who
do
the one
not.
wants to think of it.
Yeah, exactly. But you know who has thought of it? These two gentlemen. Hi, guys. How are you doing?
Hi. Good.
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Really good. I'm doing super good. Thank you, Devious. You can hear us loud and clear. We've got Nate in chat, King Snarfs in chat. You know, Gene, we just were remarking we did not know that you were a fellow from Canada, a Canadian pal. We did not know that.
Indeed.
Let's see. What are we? Paul's in
A Maypal.
chat. A Maypal.
That's what I call them now, as of today.
Yeah, chat's just hopping. We got all kinds of people having all kinds of conversation. Desmond Dentresti says 2 gentlemen and 1 vocal goblin.
We'll let everybody guess which is which.
Hey, listen, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And I'm also here today because, well, it's my job, but also it's the Bronze Age of comics.
Yes. Who brought us this topic, Troy?
That is such a great question that I am absolutely unprepared to answer.
Excellent. Well, let's dive in.
As a matter of principle, no, I'm kidding. It's it was S.E. Terran Marine.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Great. I hope they're here for it.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
It's been a
I
minute.
do have one thing I'd like to share before we jump in because I don't think it's ever happened anywhere else in the history of role-playing games.
Ever?
Share.
Ever. Probably ever.
Wow.
So I was at UConn this weekend. Thank you to everybody who came out and played games with me. We had a
You got a
wonderful
little UConn voice.
Yeah, well, I'm recovering from being sick all last week too. But
I see.
we I had 6 games. One game I only had 1 person signed up and 1 person showed up. It was a Creature Commandos game, and I was like, okay, we will run the game. It will just be me and you. You'll get the full Alex Thomas experience all on your own. But you shouldn't be 1 character. I'll have you play 2 characters. And he played Weasel and GI Robot from the Creature Commandos.
Okay.
And this player wound up in an organic PvP against himself.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
A situation came up in the story where both of those characters would not have backed down, which meant that, a fight broke out. Somebody that they were interrogating made an offhanded comment that my ex-wife's a Nazi, and there were no adults in the room to tell G.I. Robot, no, he doesn't mean literally. So G.I. Robot went and did his thing, and they waited around for the supervillain to show up because they realized the supervillain was stalking the house where the person who got killed was. Weasel was hanging around the neighborhood and ran into that person's family and started playing ball with them, playing fetch with them, and then brought the rest of the family home to meet the person who got killed. And G.I. Robot was like, what's wrong? They're a Nazi. Of course they have to die. And Weasel was like, you're upsetting my new friends. And they got into a fight.
Wow. It sounds all at once fun and schizophrenic.
Right? Indeed.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Who won?
G.I. Robot, because Weasel had to use extra effort so many times trying to get penetrating to get over his impervious toughness.
I see.
Weasel knocked himself out. He wore himself out.
Poor Weasel.
You know what? What's
That's
interesting,
very on brand.
Our friend Velth brings up a good point. That's something that would happen for a few pages in a Silver Bronze Age comic before they find the real baddie.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Absolutely. Oh, look who we've got here. We've got, a friend that I'm not sure I recall meeting, but if I've missed you in the past, my apologies, but Mr. Mean is in the house.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, glad to have you. And Cabot Crossing Publishing is here as well. Nate rolled in. all kinds of good folks. Hey, so all right, this is what I didn't want to do. We have talked about the metal ages of comics about 100 bazillion times.
Right.
It's always a fun topic, but
Yep.
I'll tell you that what I just didn't feel like doing another, well, let's all talk about the heroes of the time. And, we kind of know that, right? I mean,
Sure.
and if you're a Gen Xer like me, that era is very clear. Like, it's kind of that's
Those
the
are the comics we grew up on.
nice. Mr. Mean is a YouTuber that covers a lot of the Green Ronin games. Well, you know
Oh,
what? We're
well,
going to give you a follow and we're going to check out what you're doing over there. Thank you for stopping by. We really appreciate it. And, oh, yeah, yeah. Since Alex brought it up, the Creature Commandos debuted in the
in
Bronze Age. Yeah.
That makes sense.
And I'll tell you, there's nothing more than our chat loves than to recite heroes from an era. and,
Right.
and I invite you to continue
hmm
to do
Indeed.
so. But we're taking it in a little bit of a deeper direction because I think that that's sort of what we owe folks, given that we've been doing this now for 400 years. Um, and one of those, so basically looking at mutants and masterminds and how you run and manage sort of this Bronze Age of comics sort of era
hmm
within the context of running a game or creating a game or building characters or that kind of stuff. Um, let's see, what about the new villains who were made in the Bronze Age? What's interesting about the Bronze Age is that it's not really new anymore.
Yeah, hasn't been new for quite some time.
Yeah, the new shine, if you will, has already kind of. I mean, it's still very shiny, and so
hmm
here's the interesting thing. Well, this is what we all understand, chat, and all of us involved. That is the idea that the Bronze Era is reflective of a shift in our kind of cultures, in our even
hmm
global understanding of the world at large. Things were less than the Silver Age. If that was perfect, the Bronze Age was really, the imperfect sort of the hero with a lot of complications and a lot of
hmm
baggage, a lot of issues to
Sure.
struggle with outside of just existentialism, which was, of course, sort of the theme, but nuclear war and
hmm
there's a lot. Well, it's sort of the loss of innocence to a degree,
hmm
sort of an understanding that the world is
A lot of ways.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
absolutely.
mean, it's the era of Watergate and Vietnam, and
Yes, right, right.
a lot of the United States questioning its national identity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Questioning the motivations that about things like the Vietnam War and all that. And so,
hmm
and as sort of we'll say a garden for Gen X, it does explain a lot about how
Yes,
we grew up.
indeed.
The while there are certainly dark things and issues that we're dealing with in this current time, we're hiding under our desks doing the nuclear drills, that kind of stuff was just really it left a little bit of an impression. But so if the Bronze Age hero is defined by the flaws that they've got,
hmm
for
Yep.
Eminem, we're looking at, the complication system really steps in to kind of fill in and act as a mechanism for that, which I love because it also helps rein things in a little bit, right? Like
hmm
it's kind of a bit of a system. Do we want to talk a little
Well,
bit about that?
sure. I think that the complication system is sort of self-limiting in its own way.
Yeah.
Because of the way it's set up, you earn hero points for your complications coming into play. So uh, obviously, you want to have a good range of possible complications that can come up, which suits the Bronze Age really well in
Hmm.
terms of characters who have depth and who have their own particular flaws and foibles. But at the same time, hopefully, the way the system is set up, it keeps those things from becoming overwhelming,
Yeah.
because you could only include so many complications in the context of one game.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's also just a burden to bear,
Mhm.
right? Just for your psyche, Alex, what do you think about sort of the notion of the complication system and that as sort of a meter or a measure of how many complications do you really want to add? And
Well, one thing I think is really interesting about complications when you're thinking about the Bronze Age is how many external complications come into effect.
Mhm.
I think you find
Sure.
there's a lot more accidents, there's a lot more reaction from the public, a lot more distrust from law enforcement officials, a lot of things that
Mhm.
aren't necessarily reflect and then have an impact on you as a character from outside within.
Yep.
One thing I think is really like interesting about the Bronze Age as opposed to like the Iron Age that came in the 90s or whatever right after it is it's happening to a lot of classic superhero characters and they're running into real life consequences for the first time instead of
Mhm.
here's a bunch of creations of the 90s with all the pouches and the shoulder pads and the stuff that are like explicitly built for this environment. It's
Yeah,
how are these icons, this alchemy that's going on with the icons of the era and how the
Mhm.
thing is like everything is changing around them.
Yeah,
And like
I agree.
Spider-Man loses his girlfriend and Green Lantern gets accused of not doing enough for humans and like before this Bronze Age, all their efforts were enough, and now it's not. And I think being able to integrate external complications I think that's something to really think about from a storytelling perspective in
Yeah,
M&S.
yeah,
I agree. I also think that the Bronze Age is really the first that truly features the notion of a subplot through line in a lot of ways. It's really where comics pick up on the sort of soap opera notion of the B plot.
yeah,
Um,
Mhm,
and you get a lot more sort of ongoing storylines that are not, the main focus of each issue, but are still sort of this ongoing what's going to happen with these characters and their relationship, and what about
right.
this character's dark secret that they're grappling with, and those kinds of things, that stretch out over a much longer period of storytelling that
mhm.
isn't just wrapped up at the end of an issue and then never mentioned again.
Right, right. Hey, Desmond, Gwen Stacy
I think
was
that was
Spider.
more of a comment that happens to Spider-Man a lot now,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
Yes,
That's
it
yeah.
was a big deal back then, but
yes,
not so
indeed.
much anymore.
So, something that's interesting about all of this now, when we start talking about how the heroes themselves grappled with the changing times and how they appeared in it,
Hmm.
um, and I'm actually trying to reflect back because that was I was in the height of my comic book collecting, and I wonder, did the comics take some time to show that evolution, even though it's really kind of almost a deterioration of the fourth wall or whatever wall you want to talk about?
Hmm.
Because it's like the you would presuppose that the heroes just kind of knew it, but did they play around in that a little bit? The recognition that things were getting darker, that they were changing, and
A little bit. I mean, like Alex mentioned, there's the classic Green Lantern, Green Arrow thing of, well, Green Lantern, why aren't you doing more for, humans? You're saving all of these
yeah,
other aliens and all of that, but what are you doing about making things better on Earth? Sort of a thing. And so there are a couple of
great.
occasions where it's sort of directly called out. And otherwise, I think it was a little more subtle, uh,
Mhm.
and just they were just introducing more of these ideas and plots that hadn't been touched on before,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
taking characters into new areas.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, and they
that's
were tiptoeing around the comics code going away, seeing what they could get away with.
Yes,
that's right, the little gun
yes,
shy still as to sort of what they could say and
they,
do,
yeah,
yeah,
they were
jump
de- they were definitely
dimensions and
easing
promotion.
things with the comics code as far as that was going, because
Yeah,
remember the comics code was a self-imposed system. that the comic publishers set up in order to avoid being government regulated.
Right.
And so they were kind of, at this point, like, well, things have died down and there haven't been any government hearings about us for, a couple of decades. Maybe we can get away with doing some more stuff and nobody's going to notice.
Yeah, the government's had their hands full
Right.
for
And things were pretty busy in the 70s and 80s, in
Right.
terms of worrying about things other than comics.
Yeah, the other thing as well is I'm imagining, that when the moral sort of high ground was ceded by some of the things that were going, I mean, they kind of gave up their position, them being sort of government officials to being
Sure.
the, sort of haughty kind of, how very dare you? And I'm going to have some time to sit down and talk to people making comics when, they're reeling from impeachment and, all of that
Right.
kind of stuff.
Yeah. I
back
think this I think this age in comics also offers a really interesting opportunity from an M&M perspective, because a lot of superhero stories are about maintaining the status quo, where they start questioning the status quo in this time period. Like, it's less about upholding, the system, because the system is great and wonderful and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, but you're allowed to distrust the system now. So there
Right.
becomes a question of how proactive are your superhero PCs allowed to be in a game with this kind of
Right.
genre.
Alex, the very thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, where most people tend to think superheroes wait around until a supervillain does something, and then they stop the supervillain, and then they go back to living their lives.
Right.
They
Right.
might start having agendas and plans to help. Like, there's a candidate they want to support for mayor, or there is a corrupt police commissioner that they need to see undone, or a business mogul who they need to find evidence to take them down the right way.
Yeah.
Sure.
Things like
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Well, in what you're saying, as far as the that goes, also gave rise to the anti-hero, the vigilante. That's the
Mhm.
areas we're talking about, of course, like
Yep.
Punisher and stuff.
And
Yeah, go
I think that it's interesting that in some ways, the most proactive characters of the Bronze Age are the vigilantes.
yes, yeah,
Are the characters who are anti-heroes in a lot of ways, who are willing to step over a lot of the lines that heroes stuck to. And you get, the Punisher and Wolverine and,
yes, yeah,
those kinds of characters. Um, I think you see a lot of. I agree with Alex. I think you see a lot of superheroes who are questioning their role. And am I doing enough? Should I be doing something else?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you
A lot
know,
of
uh,
existential sort of,
a
yeah,
lot of existential.
yeah,
Mhm.
Whereas the vigilante characters are just, they have a certain purity in the sense that they are just going to do their thing, and it's up to the heroes to be like, "Whoa, like you're going too far."
yeah,
I think you might need to rein this in.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Now, Devious brings up in chat. I also want to say, hey, RC, good to see you, friend. Devious brings up that this is the era where Batman became darker. I,
hmm
do,
Yeah,
um,
Denny
for,
O'Neill's Batman, and yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of feeling like too that Batman really reached his zenith of darkness and despair in the '90s. Does that feel like that's right, or
Um, I mean,
early
if you
years?
think that Dark Knight Returns is basically the turning point on that,
Yeah, yeah.
so late '80s, as far as it goes. But yeah, I mean, definitely Batman as the Dark Knight detective is very much a Bronze Age character.
Mhm.
And a big contrast from the sort of wacky '60s and '50s
Oh,
Batman.
certainly the campy kind of, yeah, yeah, long
Yeah,
gone, long gone. To the degree that people who only understood Batman through the lens of the intensity of Batman would look at that and just be offended. They,
yeah.
So here's a question. So looking at when you look at those vigilantes, those anti-heroes, the sort of gray market,
hmm
good or bad guys,
Yep.
um, the challenge there is that those behaviors are often antisocial in nature.
hmm
How do you encourage players when they're creating those vigilantes to do so without being sort of obnoxiously derailing sort of the normal thing, because really that
hmm
they are there to kind of iconoclast, to kind of break up the
Yes.
the norm? How do you balance the "I'm a bad man," to let's have some fun playing a
Right.
game?
Well, again, that comes down to talking to your players about what do we want our game to be.
Yep.
Do we want to have the power fantasy of being able to speak truth to power and just tearing down the corrupt systems and killing all the bourgeoisie, or is this going to be more of an escape where we don't necessarily want to engage with all of that
Mm-hmm.
all at once?
Right.
We want to
Well,
have
Yeah.
just sort
and
of
And
superhero
go ahead,
shenanigans.
and the middle ground of that is, and this is where you get into that conversation with your players and get willing to do a little sort of meta role playing.
Yeah.
Is there are basically two kinds of extreme characters in the Bronze Age. There are the antisocial Wolverine types, who are basically around in order for their more level-headed teammates to rein them in.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And that is an interplay that you have to work out with your players, and to
Yes.
say, hey, the vigilante character on your team is occasionally going to go rogue. It is
Yeah.
your job, the rest of you players, to basically to rein them in. It is your job, vigilante player, to eventually let them,
Yes.
and not be a complete jerk about it. And
Yes.
to understand basically the setup in the story is that your character is going to push the limits, and other people are going to push back, and eventually you're going to be like, okay, because the other type of vigilante is basically the Punisher, who is in the Bronze Age a supervillain
That's
for
right.
all
That's
intents and
absolutely right.
purposes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and so it's working out that line with the players and getting everybody on board to do that.
And really, I really like this portion of the conversation because I think that it's about building resiliency within the player to understand this is how this goes, when I might be pushing it too far, when I might be, or
Mhm.
and I think
Yeah.
that is it's an important conversation to have, and even at the point where everybody around the table says, "Oh, sure, we'll have a Wolvie around the table," and
Yep.
then it can be pretty easy to forget when suddenly Wolverine goes rogue and kills
Yeah.
someone that shouldn't be killed or something, or whatever their kind of their lone wolf character brings out. And so, yeah, that's very interesting. And I do think that
Mhm.
as people, that we're communicating regularly and getting people engaged and meeting some masterminds, I love the notion of building more
Yeah.
resiliency in people. When they say, yes, let's do that thing, that they are able
Mhm.
to pull it off without, kind of tripping over their own
And
adamantine.
like Alex points out, I think it's also about being very clear with your players what kind of game everybody wants
Mhm.
to have.
Yeah.
If you want a Bronze Age style game where it's mostly traditional superheroes and one or two edgier lone wolf characters who are trying the boundaries, then that's great, and you can plan for that. If you wanted a game where the characters are, the players are all just like, no, we all want to like stick it to the man,
Yeah.
and you want a much more, just sort of like everybody wants to be a vigilante, and we want to go
Mhm.
around and really make a difference. That's a whole different game, and absolutely totally valid.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just get a sense of what everybody wants out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you are going to have a lone wolf player, you know, there's a lot of talk of reining them in and everything. You do want to make sure you provide some enrichment in their enclosure because they will,
Yes.
give them a moment in the story to do the thing, like let
Yes.
them
Give
go off the handle a
give
little
give
bit.
them the Wolverine in the sewers underneath the Hellfire Club mansion scene where they're
Right.
on their own and they just get to go house on a
Yeah.
group of minions.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're that character and they should get to do that.
I'm
Mhm.
also reminded of the series when he was in Japan.
Yep.
And yeah,
Mhm.
that was one of the darker times I can recall. I mean, as I was, kind of reading sort of the building, Wolvie was always a badass, but then suddenly he's like, oh my gosh, like people's faces are
Yeah.
being sliced off.
Yeah, and one thing you can do to accommodate things like that, like if the lone wolf does leave the group for periods of time, talk to your group and say, "Are you guys comfortable if the lone wolf leaves for a while? Can we come up with the other people he runs into when he goes to the next location?"
Mhm.
like his contacts in Japan. Like you can make characters that can
Right.
participate in that story. So I don't have to schedule a one-on-one game with the other player, and you guys are just sitting here waiting for
Yeah.
him to be done.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you want to do a nice change of pace adventure, you can always do the scenario where the lone wolf character goes off and works with, the Suicide Squad, or
Right.
the,
Mhm.
the government black ops team that he knows from back in the day.
Yeah.
Um, and the other players can play those characters for an
I
adventure
love that idea.
and
I
get
love
a
that idea.
totally different feel, and then go back to playing their other characters, as the lone wolf characters. Like, well, what were you doing? Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Exactly.
you don't want to know.
Man,
So it's also really interesting
I
when
love
you.
how Wolverine's a lone wolf, and he's on like the most teams of any superhero
Well,
I've
right.
got off the top of
Yeah,
my head.
he really has. Yeah, and plus he's the lone wolf with that very very public fondness streak.
Hmm. Yep.
Which is
Mhm.
nice to
Yep.
watch, and you can
Yeah.
it's always a nice part of the which is I think also a little bit of a tell for people playing those roles is that
Hmm.
there is some real joy in expressing the moments where that lone wolf character isn't so lone. Has
Well,
that.
exactly. It's important to express that those characters are more than just vigilante killing machines. That they
Mhm.
are interesting in their own right and have depth. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think a fun opportunity for a role playing situation. Again, thinking of reasons the lone wolf is hanging out with a group of heroes. The lone wolf player and another player could have a lone wolf and cub situation where
yep.
like there is the cupcake character who is the reason the lone wolf is hanging around with the cupcake's friends
Right.
and trying to learn how to be
Right.
a better person.
The precious cinnamon bun of the team must be protected.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Like the kitty pride,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
love that.
Yep.
John mentions a great suggestion too, which is if they
Hmm.
if there's really an opportunity to kind of allow your lone wolf to flex,
Yep.
set up a whole kind of fun engagement. Yeah, I love that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Um,
just be careful and let your players know don't steamroll the hero because you're
exactly.
quickly going to find out
You don't want to
how.
set up a PvP situation with that, because that can get
Yeah,
out of hand really fast.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because for some reason NPCs are way more competent when a player character controls them
When a
than the
player is running them,
masters
yeah. Funny thing that.
Yeah, and it strikes me as well looking at the way that the Bronze Age plays out, it plays out over such a long period of time. The 70s and 80s, you might as well be talking about two different planets. I
Hmm.
mean, it's a lot goes on, and
Yeah.
I think about the 70s and how things kind of took a turn, and then the 80s where things kind of felt like they were a little bit more fun and festive than maybe the 70s. The advent of technology and all that. But one thing that strikes me is that would you say that part of the even looking back through the other ages
Hmm.
prior and the ones that came after, there there a point in time that a hero with no powers came into being in more ubiquity than they once were, or was it really because I know that way back in the day it was really just a bunch of guys running around with punch
Yeah,
fists, like
I
that's
was gonna say it's kind of like a parabola or whatever that is,
Hmm.
where there's a bunch of
parabolas.
them, and then there's not as many, and then there's a bunch of them again.
Yeah.
I guess the
Yeah,
opposite parabola. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
not a math guy.
just a bowl, I think.
Yeah, I do think that a lot of the sort of human level characters of the Bronze Age tended to have a shtick of some kind. You didn't have a lot of strictly "I'm just a really skilled guy" characters.
Yeah,
They tended to be, like I've got something going for me, like Wolverine's healing factor in his claws,
that's true.
for
Yeah,
example, or those sorts of things. But there's some examples. I was thinking, related to the lone wolf concept, that it actually also relates interestingly and well to the other end of the Bronze Age spectrum, which is the cosmic characters,
Mhm.
yes,
um,
absolutely.
because they kind of get handled in a very similar way, and in that, they usually have particular restrictions on their cosmicness, oftentimes. Um, and there's often that their teammates, everybody else is kind of there to help sort of ground them and kind of keep things contained.
Mhm.
Whether it's just like having them understand humanity and what it's like to be a mere mortal, or it's helping them contain this tremendous power that
Yeah.
they don't have full control over.
Yeah,
You know,
Jeremiah,
and
that's a whole swath of unpowered forces
Mhm.
to reckon with that I didn't think of, which was the agents, the government entities, the shield.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
very
yeah.
interesting.
Well, espionage was obviously a big genre
Oh,
in the
certainly.
Bronze Age.
Mhm.
This is the heyday of the James Bond movies.
Yes, absolutely.
And The Man from Uncle and Mission Impossible. The
Oh,
whole
right. Yeah,
espionage genre was huge.
kind of blew up. Yeah, absolutely.
Real
So
people were really paranoid for no reason.
Yeah, I was going to say you were in the midst of the Cold War and people were really
Yeah.
paranoid for some reason.
yeah, exactly. So here's looking at sort of the GM's role when sort of rolling out. Like we've all agreed, you've got your party. They're waiting for the story to unfold, and you're building a Bronze Age encounter or a experience for your
Hmm.
heroes.
Yeah.
That if we look at sort of the Bronze Age stories being sort of about real issues, it's not Mole Man. It's sort of you're killing the Earth Man. Who is
Hmm.
also a villain but also a hero, and etc. Um, when looking at real world problems, and I'm interested in chat's thought on this as well, and really just your natural sort of temperament towards the idea of building an entire campaign around political corruption, economic inequality, pollution,
Hmm.
drug epidemics, is that central plot material? Are you finding friends? Or are you, feeling like we save that for the news and we do something different? I'm wondering what you guys think as well.
Well, I don't want to deal with it, but that's just my personal preference.
'Cause I'm
Yeah,
in the same
Um,
boat.
that's
Yeah.
legit.
Yeah. I'm definitely there. Yeah, Gene, Gene, you do bring up a good point. And I wanted to bring this up earlier. We're going to get into horror because that definitely
Yes.
plays a
yeah.
role that pops up
Yep.
most certainly.
Big element.
I think I prefer the real world issues. I don't like to make them front and center, but I'm happy to have things going on in the background that the heroes can engage
Yeah.
with if they
Yeah.
want.
Hmm.
Like knowing that there's a mayoral race going on and both of them are corrupt but for different reasons, and like what's the lesser of two evils,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
at why is this group of people being picked off by the supervillain for their experiments or little things like that.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
it I have to be with a group of players that I have a level of comfort with and a level of trust with
Right. Right.
before I
Agreed.
engage with anything like that.
And the idea
Agreed.
that you're like, hey, players, you are going toe to toe, face to face with global warming. It's you and global
Mhm.
warming. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that's an
Hmm.
intensity that
Yep.
is not super
Yep.
fair. And oh, hey, look who's here, SC Terran Marine 14.
Yes.
This is this
This is your
show.
topic.
This is your topic, friend. You get a real life hero point. It will appear in some form, some manner. You'll know it when you see it, and once you get it, you can use it to win an argument. You can use it to change a whole scenario, like those times when you're like, oh shoot, I wish I would have said
Hmm.
this and this. Yeah, or you could suddenly learn how to, I don't know, tap dance, whatever it is you've got cooking. But we thank you for that, and just as a reminder to everybody, only 6 more episodes before we do another planning episode, so
I know.
get
Can you
your,
believe it?
yeah,
That's
I
fake news.
cannot. I know it really does feel like we're like the fast forward button. Someone's leaning on it or something. But friends, think about what start sharpening your thoughts on this, and I really would love to see some very interesting topics. Not that we couldn't make a
Hmm.
topic out of anything. The three of us can sit and talk forever,
Sure.
and especially with you all. But yeah,
I
think about
So keeping on this idea,
Hmm.
I don't like engaging with that if I don't have to, but
yeah,
it is a really one thing about this Bronze Age mentality about superhero stories, I think, lends itself very well to a campaign structure,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, I think there's a very popular misconception that M&M is only a one-shot game. It comes up a lot, and like people only play it at cons because they want to play with their favorite characters, and they don't want to deal, like they can't wrap their heads around how to
Sure.
do an ongoing story in
Yeah.
this genre. And I think there's a ton of great examples of how it can work as an episodic story or as an overarching campaign story found in the pages of Bronze Age comics. The thing like Captain America or Green Arrow and Green Lantern taking their walk across the country, and how many different adventures you want to do involved in that, or dealing with sort of the Nightfall situation with Batman, where Bane showed up and wore him down with a bunch of villains in a bunch of scenarios before attacking. Like, I think there's something here that you can look into for inspiration for how to think about structuring a multi-episode story of Mutants and Masterminds.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, I think that the Bronze Age is really the era of comics that brought us the, multi-part story. Was originally when comics started to have more complex storylines that would last more than one issue, and would go 6 or 8 issues sometimes.
Right.
And it would have this whole story arc. The thing for me about the challenge of bringing the sort of Bronze Age ethos of real world problems in the game is that we had a period of when we were doing that in the Bronze Age and even into the Iron Age. You had, the I'm going to use Captain Planet as sort of a really
Yes.
obvious example, where the antagonists were cartoonish, parodies of of challenges like, corporate greed and pollution
Yes.
and those kinds of things, threats to the environment, global
Yeah.
warming, what have you. Now we're in in sort of a period in our culture where the problem is that we're not all agreed that those things are bad.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it's the actual
I'm good on
possibility.
having those things as casting them as cartoonish villains myself. But the problem is that a lot of those cartoonish villains are actually like running things.
Yes.
Like literally, hi, my job is to destroy this thing that I've been put in charge of.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
And so
And like,
for me, at least right now, that cuts a little close to home
A little
in
too
terms
close, right?
of supervillainy. Like
Paul kind of mentioned something similar, and this is a double-edged sword, I think, which is the biggest problem with having heroes battle real-life menaces. Is that in the real world there are no superheroes. Like there could be a certain
well,
escapism that lets you,
indeed,
feel good about it, but yeah,
indeed, and
when you walk
and
outside, there's
you
still
know, in the real world, we don't have the option of choosing not to deal with things that we find unpleasant. Whereas
that's
in our
very true.
recreation, we do.
Jeremiah brings up that I think I'm in agreement, but I mean, I'm in agreement if we agree as well that the real complicated issues were coming from the people.
Well, yeah, and I think that the Bronze Age was really just starting to scratch the surface. I mean, it's hard to ding them for not getting too deep
Yeah.
when the very notion of even bringing things up like racism and feminism was considered radical.
Right. Yeah.
The fact that you were even talking about it was a huge deal.
And the most radical of the
Yeah.
70s and 80s activists would blanch at what people in our modern time have to say about their efforts. You know what I mean? Like they would
Yeah,
absolutely. So
indeed.
yeah, it's very interesting. I think we're seeing though, while they may not have gone too deep on the sort of complex issue front or the larger issues front, they were going in deep on their personal issues, like their kind of personality challenges and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's
and
point well made.
And we talked about it earlier, but there's also the consideration of we're not sure what we'll get away with, so we're gonna inch our way in,
Right.
and we'll take that inch, and maybe we'll get a mile later.
Yeah.
And I think starting the conversation is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And we have the benefit of hindsight, where we can use the idea of incorporating these elements in our games, but we have the capability through our connection to the internet and through our willingness to engage with learning more and educating ourselves about the
Mhm.
issue before we present it. And if
Yeah.
you want to present these things, that is the efforts you need to go through. As in my opinion, as a game master, you need to, if you're going to use these elements, you need to do so in a respectful and an educated manner.
I
Yes.
love that. Not a ham-handed looking to offend as by, just because.
Yeah.
That's really
Take
well said.
It's really just encouraging game masters to take the same effort they would put into researching how a medieval castle is put together,
Yeah.
to address these same issues, of doing that same depth of research
Yeah.
that you would
Yeah.
do.
And certainly at
I
the
know
end of
our
the day,
community. I know we can learn the minutia of complicated
oh my
concepts.
mercy. Yeah.
Right. Totally.
But then also, I think it's fair to say sometimes, you just punch Nazis, and that's I mean,
Yeah.
like that. We get that part.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
so interestingly enough, Jeremiah brings up
and
the
and in the real world, I do believe the answer should be we kill all the Nazis. I
yeah.
think
I
that
honestly,
should be
Yeah.
like
if you
we
just
should not
punch them
entertain them or allow them in our spaces
at
or
all.
tolerate
I
their
mean,
existence. But
at all. Not even like the shape of or
Yeah.
the mimicking
yeah.
sound of. But
Yep.
yeah, agreed 100%, Alex. So
Yeah.
Jeremiah brings up the cosmic stories of the Bronze Age that really
Yes.
brought on by kind of the 70s, and sort of that there are trippy moments that really led to some pretty major shifts in thinking about just
Mhm.
what the world is, and
Yeah.
also some advancements in science that made you think, am I high? Like, what tell me about a black hole again? Like
Right.
it's pretty wild. But
Yeah.
when you're dealing with sort of the cosmic entities like Dark Phoenix, and then you're dealing with the agent, the Aegis agent.
Mhm.
What's her face? Well, who I don't think what's her face had powers, right? The Russian
You talking about Black Widow?
Black Widow. Yeah, did she have powers? Was she was just
Nope.
well trained? Yeah. And so when you've got those two, ends of a
Mhm.
different spectrum, or the same spectrum but different ends, how should the players think about managing and balancing that out, and what can the GM do to kind of prep and prepare for a cosmic level thing is quite different than a we're gonna kick it,
Mhm.
kick and shoot and punch.
Well, we talked about it earlier, but a very strong session zero with a very good pitch document
So I want
for
to I want
what
to
you're
say
looking
this.
for.
Let's imagine that
Mhm.
we've done the pitch and everyone
Sure.
agrees.
Hmm.
I feel like it's not something that I have seen play out really well a lot at tables. Like I can see sometimes that almost not that people just suddenly start going, I'm blowing everything up and you are now you're turned into a toad and I'm, changing all the molecules around me to whatever. Um but
Mhm.
that when it comes to kind of building that resilience in both the players and to prep the GM for, even though everyone's signed on the dotted line, there's still a potential for a bumpy road ahead.
Mhm.
How and also too, I do think it's important that the players get some agency, but also some accountability, right? For
Yep.
not
Hmm.
playing it out right, or not thinking about their friend without the powers, or their friend with the cosmic powers, or and
Mhm.
I'm just kind of wanted to open that up for a bit of a discussion, and just kind of see how or if it's even a problem.
So are we
Well,
talking about a party that's blended of the two
Yeah,
groups, like
yeah,
Cosmic Heroes teamed up with street
like the
level
power
characters?
source
Okay.
and the
sure.
yeah,
Sure.
exactly.
I mean,
Okay.
some of it is the way M&M is set up with the power level system. Uh, there's nothing that stops normal human characters from being power level 12.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, just because they don't have any significant powers doesn't mean they're not unbelievably skilled characters capable of doing very impressive things in their own area. You know, when we did, when we did DC Adventures, Batman and Superman are pretty close to the same power level, in spite of the fact that they're very different characters.
right,
You
right.
know, so there's that for one thing, and so characters are going to be very effective in their own areas.
Mhm.
The cosmically powerful character, sure, is going to be able to melt tanks and what have you. But if you want somebody who has to sneak into somewhere, they're probably not going to be any good at that.
Right.
They're not subtle.
Yeah.
It's weird how many other problems that can't solve.
Right. And so some of it is just, coming up with the, uh, providing different spotlight opportunities for the different characters' specialties, and playing to their strengths.
And also because Mutants and Masterminds is so brilliant in its architecture, that playing to their weaknesses as well.
Yes, as well.
And being rewarded to do that. I think it's something that I while I'm playing in a game, I will forget, and then I'll have a moment where I'm like, oh wait, I get to add a little texture to this engagement by not being by doing something and not winning. Which is really a really fun thing that I promise you, friends, if you're sitting there thinking, I want to be a hero, I just want to win all day. It's kind of fun not to. Lots of fun things unfold. But Alex, did you want to add some thoughts to that?
So talking about how characters are specialized, that's important. Again, from an adventure design perspective, you want to make sure that you have things for everyone to do. If there is a massive power level difference, you don't want to get to the end of your adventure and have one big like power level 18 villain show up, and then there's suddenly nothing for anybody who's not power level 15 to do.
Exactly. When Reality Bender comes to play, and the only person that can handle it is the Dark Phoenix of the group. Yeah.
I'm thinking even of like when Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman went to go fight Darkseid on Apocalypse. Batman found the activation codes for all of his bombs and threatened to set them off, and that was something Batman could do while everybody else was getting beat up.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that also does speak to the GM again. Even once you've got all of the understanding and the agreement, and people want to move in this direction, that you got to do a little bit of that work to make sure that the moments you're having have an analog opportunity or a cosmic sort of solution or side quest or something. Yeah, I love that.
And I guess there is the question: do you do mixed power levels, or do you just tell the players to really focus their power points in the direction they want their character to be?
That's a great question.
There's two schools of thought about that. And I've seen it work both ways.
I agree. And keep in mind that a lot of the there are definitely power level disparities within the comics, but a lot of the seeming power level disparities are a lot of times the character's focus or theme, so far as that goes. And in other cases, they're essentially either plot devices or things like the holding back advantage, where, this character gets super powerful occasionally, but it's usually pretty bad when that happens. And then there's a lot of fallout afterwards.
Yeah, Gene.
Yeah, I tend to.
Sorry.
I have a really just going on the holding back advantage. I tend to think of that for characters like Hulk or Jean Grey who have this like second mode they go into, but using it as a way to simulate Superman holding back and then having his World of Cardboard speech, I think is a really good. Like when he's in the Justice League, he is holding back. He's he is on par with them, but when he needs to, he could step up and be like solo Superman. I think that's a really cool character building tool using that advantage.
Now, I do want to just mention this is a really smart idea and a very sort of one-to-one opportunity to make sure no one's left out is by creating the villain team that maps to the hero to each one. So here's very a very important element of the Bronze Age is sort of the rise of the monster, the horror of it all, and are we? Especially even supernatural stuff, because part of the comics code kind of thing was, let's do as the Bible says, and let's not, they really drew a lot of their moral sort of backbone from that from that book and that sort of cultural phenomenon. Now you can have supernatural horror. You could play around in sort of the dark arts and create, introduce a whole bunch of new baddies or goodies. Really, there's some good vampires and wolves and things in our stories. How do you see the utilizing mutants and masterminds to run a genuinely scary horror game. I mean, clearly it can power it. I mean, is it wise?
Well, the question is, of course, how genuinely scary should some of the comic book horror elements be?
Yeah.
I mean, there are plenty of Bronze Age stories of superhero teams effectively fighting Satan,
That's right. Yeah.
or a proxy thereof, and sometimes that's kind of scary, and sometimes the devil's just another supervillain.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Eminem can handle both. I think
Yeah.
Supernatural Handbook has some pretty good optional rules for handling some of the like mechanical terror stuff
Mm-hmm.
that you might want to run into.
Yep.
But in storytelling wise, it comes down to what your group wants. I mean, there are a few. I have a couple of Titan City adventures that lend themselves to more of an existential psychological horror. I ran one yesterday
Mm.
at the convention that there is that sort of creeping, well, we found the bad guy, but we can't punch this problem. This problem is something that is something bigger and worse, and we're
Mm-hmm.
too late to solve the problem.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
I mean, the Bronze Age is of course the era of the Omen, and
Yes.
the pop culture Satanism, essentially.
Yeah.
Where it was that those stories were hugely popular, which is of course where you also see the Son of Satan and Ghost Rider and all of the
Yes.
70s and early 80s sort of pop culture heavy metal demon types come
Mhm.
into play. And again, it's either that's window dressing and just their shtick, and they're just other super types, or like Alex says, you play up the question of if the superheroes encounter the equivalent of Damien in their in their scenario, what do they do? I mean, he's a kid, but he's also going to end the world. you
Right.
know
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Absolutely. The other thing I was going to say too is this era also very neatly encapsulates kind of the beginning of things like the Elvira and sort of the campy
mhm.
sort of
Yep.
I think of Vincent Price and or
Yep.
those Saturday night spooky with the
Yep. Well,
goofy
there was a
host.
whole
Yeah.
Hammer horror revival,
Mhm.
around that time, and
Yeah. And so it feels to me too like an opportunity to have some fun as a storyline, to be
mhm.
campy and all of. I mean,
Yeah,
of course,
sure.
none of this suggests
I
that you must go through the Bronze Age before you get to the fun.
what
Like
I came across in a comic store when I was when I travel. Of course, first thing I look for is bookstores and comic stores.
right.
Um, and I
Mhm.
was looking through the back issues in a comic store, and I came across this 70s issue of Tomb of Dracula from Marvel Comics that was Dracula versus Silver Surfer. And I was just like, that is the most comic book thing I have seen in a long
That's
time.
that's such a bad matchup.
It was just awesome. I was just like, I am here for this.
Oh
D-
yeah.
it
Jeremiah
was it
Reese.
like that one time Superman got bit by a vampire and the vampire exploded?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's powered by sunlight, right? So,
Yeah.
Count Floyd. This is great.
uh,
Yeah, and Paul brings up what I always think, and I actually have the posters of the old Universal monsters. Like
mhm,
yeah, this is a
yeah,
fun reflection. Oh yeah, here you go. Great list, Bernard. Elvira,
yep,
Vampirella, Lady Death, Witchblade. Yeah, absolutely. Very, very
And I
cool
think all of
stuff.
that comes down to horror is fun, monsters are fun. I think
yeah,
you can lean into that, especially with
Yeah,
an
yeah.
Eminem game.
Get a little Scooby Doo on it if you'd like.
Yeah,
Why not? I like
I
that.
mean, this wasn't this at the time when Batman was hanging out with Scooby Doo in the
Yes, absolutely.
cartoon? Was
Yeah,
yeah,
Scooby Doo
it
and the Harlem
happened.
Globetrotters.
yeah.
Yeah, they were a group to be contended with during this time. But yeah, the era of X-Men versus Frankenstein.
Yeah, basically.
They've done it all. Comics have done it all, for sure. But one thing I'd really appreciate about this conversation is is the getting into the mechanics of it all, and I love the notion of sort of player resiliency and GM resiliency as well, and sort of putting some of the pieces together of what you want to prepare for, of course, and we do that regularly. I
Mhm.
love the kind of dissection, pulling apart the what is your role after you agree,
Yeah.
but yeah, very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I just realized that we have 5 minutes left, or less than 5 minutes left, in the show, or maybe 7 minutes. I don't have my glasses on. It's time is a flat circle. We'll be here again. But gentlemen, thinking about the notion of the Bronze Age, are there elements that you just for your own self, not even in the context of advice for other people, but as you are kind of what do you like to extract from that era, that time, and feel like you must include it, or it really influences the stuff that you do now?
I think the main thing that sort of influences what I do now is the the notion we talked about earlier, where um, superheroes are examining their role in the universe rather than
Yeah.
just being
Hmm.
aspirational mythological figures. There are realistic things that happen to them, and they form family units that don't necessarily always get along all the time, and there's drama that builds up, and I think there's so much that I pull from
Hmm.
those ideas
Yeah,
in my own work right now.
I agree. I think that one of the things that is really worth keeping in mind is that we talk a lot about how to different ways how to simulate or use the different tropes of this and other genres of comics and superheroes. Um, I think it is important and useful to remember when you are running a superhero role playing game that you're also not restricted by
Yeah.
these
Hmm.
genre tropes, and especially but you're not restricted by the comic book notion that these characters have to be relatively the same month to month because you're
Hmm.
selling a product. You can actually change your world in
Hmm.
how any way you want, really. And so, if you are playing around with the Bronze Age notion that things have consequences and the characters can be dealing with problems, you can actually let them solve them,
Yeah.
or
Right.
actually affect change. The comic book publishers can't, you know, let their characters do a lot of that stuff because then they stop having stories to tell.
That's right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, their setting doesn't look like our world anymore.
Yeah.
But it's your setting, and you can do whatever you want with it.
I love that. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. Alex, did you have any thoughts you want to add to that, or?
No, just I like that, Steve.
Yeah, a lot. I do. I do that as well. So let's see what we've got. Hey, chat, you have been on fire today. Friends, if you're listening on demand, you most definitely want to check out the chat. They are
Yeah.
absolutely an encyclopedia of both knowledge and ways to irritate me. They're very, very good at that as well.
Yes.
So yeah, hearty thank you to chat. How about we do this, Steve? What's going on in the Steve Kenson cinematic universe?
Well, the fourth edition M&M Heroes Handbook is in editing. Uh, Work is progressing on the fourth edition Masterminds Manual. I just finished up redoing all of the villain archetypes, which was a giant chunk of work. And they villain archetypes section alone is about it's 100 pages of manuscript. I don't know how much it's going to come
Wow,
out to when we format it, but it's a lot.
that is a
So many villains.
So
yeah,
many villains in so much detail, and we've added a lot of options and so many tables. Um, so I think
that's
folks
cool.
folks will enjoy it. But that is an ongoing project, along with a few other promotional goodies for our fourth edition, which folks will see in due time.
I love a secret. Fantastic. Awesome. Alex, you've got something going on every day of every week, and it's generally
Well.
speaking Mutants and Masterminds. What's cooking for you?
Tonight in about 30 minutes, I'll be going live with my office hours over at
Yay.
twitch.tv/Untold Stories Project,
Yep.
where I'll be talking about what happened to UConn this weekend. If people are
Nice.
curious how the games went. And more Eminem every Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the Thursday podcast episodes. And working on Valiant Adventure stuff at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely. And that's I haven't seen the question yet, so I'm not going to ask it. But things move ahead at a pace, right?
Yes, other projects are moving apace.
Yes. So there you go, friends. Fantastic. Gentlemen, what a great conversation we had today. I really appreciated the dialogue, and always a joy hanging out with you too. I can't believe we've been doing this for so long, and we're not tired of it.
Right?
Yeah, 35 years.
35 years we've been doing this. Alex is now, Alex, it was Alex's mother. Alex was in utero. Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Well, it was nice for her to sit in for the meetings. I appreciated it.
Yeah,
Right.
she's great. Yeah. Really a real soldier. I appreciated that. But yeah, so I think what we're going to do now is jump over to a little segment we like to call What's in the Tank. We're going to let these guys check out. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye now.
Take care, everybody.
And so, as we talk about what's in the tank, I do want to say this, that, hey, every Thursday we do a little program called Thursdage. Thursdage is all about the adventure game engine, Thursdage. Get it? That show was named by our dear friend, Owen Casey Stevens, who used to star with me in that program. Hey, Stan. Yeah, it's a blast. You want to come over and hang out, and then after that we do office hours. I have been remiss. I have been recalcitrant in the creation of our calendar for this month, and by the time I went to do it, it's already half month. The month is already half over, so that's my bad. We'll create that and have it ready to go. It might be more of a December thing. Can you believe we're almost to the holidays? I can't. That's a little distressing. And let me see. Let's pop open this and say, howdy, friend.
Howdy. How's it going?
It's going very well, thank you. When we want to hobnob with the community, we go to the Atomic Think Tank. And What's in the Tank is a section that is really devoted to having that conversation and sharing all kinds of details about it, which is exciting. Hang on one second while I get to this so I can see your face. Hi, buddy.
Oh, how's it going?
It's going all right. But better now that you're here.
See my new title?
Grand Poobah.
Yes, I am the Grand Poobah. I was just previously just the Poobah, but then I got a promotion. It was nice.
I thought you were just a poo.
Well, that was at first. I had to work my way up for the Ba part,
gotcha.
But now I am the Grand Poobah. So.
Oh, I love that. Congratulations on your promotion. I dig it. But yeah, let's talk about what is in the tank.
What is in the tank?
Yeah,
what's
backwards.
Is backwards. Why does that keep doing that to me? Nobody loves me.
Because you're in the mirror universe. That's why.
Don't eat worms.
This is devious from the mirror universe. If you were to see he has a goatee.
Oh, well, I kind of always do, but now I have a sub goatee. There's a goatee under the goatee.
Plus, you're drinking goat tea.
Exactly. So you have to boil the goat to just a certain level. You don't want to let it steep too long because
you have gravy on your hands.
Goat tea.
You don't want gravy on your hands. Yeah.
That's right. Well,
all right.
Some of us do want it between our toes too.
And yes, that's out of the tank.
Oh my! All right. Well,
let's party.
What's in the tank? We've got, first of all, new in the Freedom City Library. I just did an article on, and it's one of the many that I do, and it came from Reddit. The person was
Love
asked
this.
is, will I be able to use Mutants Masterminds to make a dispatch
I
style
saw
game?
that on.
Dispatch
Yeah.
is a remarkably popular game right now, and it's being backed by Critical Role, folks from Critical Role, who are also the voice actors in it as well. It is basically a guy who dispatches these kind of lower tier former villains out to act as heroes, to do everything from get cats out of trees all the way up to all the way up to like rescuing hostages and things like that. And yeah, I mean, it actually is a really good setup. It allows you to make a bunch of lower tier heroes and establish kind of what I call a beer and pretzels game, where you have kind of a villain of the week. You don't have to worry about cliffhangers where somebody, if somebody has a not that great a schedule, they can either be there or they don't have to be. Everything is solved within the game itself, and then it moves on. There might be an underlying plot thread here or there, but everything
Awesome.
gets done all within one fell swoop of the game. I've
Love that.
also written an article on the Bronze Age, basically what we were just talking about, just basically getting into the history. This is my era. I remember I was thrilled when my mom had to go to the K&B drugstore at the
Oh, for your
local
comics
plaza,
fix. Yeah.
where I would sit on the tile floor, the Formica floor, and like sit at the spinner rack, and then of course I being 7-8 years old, I was fumbling through the books, bending all the spines. I didn't know. I am
Well, we
so
didn't know. It
sorry.
was a different time. A very
I
different time.
I was innocent. I didn't know bending the spine would cause it to go from mint to near mint. I didn't know. Um, yeah, but anyway, I mean, and the report I have in there is all about the era, what started the era, what different things occurred in the era and what made it so.
Yeah.
There's also from the previous week, from the previous Moo Memo, there was a discussion of props. So I did an article on the props of power enhancing your M&M game with handouts, props, and reference sheets.
Yeah, so I want to,
Mm,
but real quick, I want to say, as we're reading
Yeah.
through these articles, understand, friends, that this is something you can contribute to with your own article.
Mhm.
Or if you see an article or a stat block or something mentioned, or it's listed as part of the uh, information in the tank, it's there for you to borrow. You can
Oh yeah.
grab it and add it to your campaign. You can even read what Devious said and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to write a different take, and absolutely,
Make
it's
a counter argument.
yeah. I mean, you could debate him. You could challenge him to a fisticuffs via the article system, but it's really a phenomenal library that has a ton of evergreen stuff in there, and it's also we're lowering the price. It
Oh
used to,
wow.
yeah. Now it is. I'm gonna take it 50% off of its original. Yeah,
What was the original price, Troy?
free,
So
but
now it's
now it's
half off of
half off
free.
free. Yeah.
That's right.
Pretty soon we're gonna
The
actually have to start charging because isn't that the way math works? You kind of go until you go back around, and you
Well, I
know,
mean, I'm sure next year we're probably going to double it again. I mean, I know it's inflation.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
it's,
But the
it's
infinite
just
ideas, infinite Earths for you to talk about, and articles for you to rate or read, or resources for you to borrow in any manner to utilize as you see fit. So the tank is
all
really a tremendous resource.
all part of our clever plan. Number one, give it away for free. Step three is profit. I'm
Yeah, I
very
don't
hazy
know.
on step two,
Well, I
somewhere
hear
in
they're going to
there.
start taking friendship for rent.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, and yeah, the Freedom City Library, which is where all the articles are on M&M and everybody's thoughts on playing the game and role playing things like that, is absolutely free. As is the Aegis files. The Aegis
Mm-hmm.
files. Good Lord, we literally, I'm not exaggerating, we have, and I've counted thousands of stat blocks in the Aegis files, but mainly due to fantastic contributors like Chris Davies, Matt Maybray, Steinbrewer, just people getting in there. Jack Kellum gets in there. Paul Rua, fantastic. Don't basically putting their characters out there for you guys to use.
Yeah.
And right recently they've gotten on a Fourth Origin kick, so they're doing a lot of Fourth Origin characters out there, especially Chris Davies. Oh, what a powerhouse. But Matt Mabray is coming in this week. Look at that.
Yeah.
4 in a row right there. And he did one on Shigra, which is kind of a Shigra, and basically like Tigra, the wild woman kind of archetype. It's kind of an homage to the Bronze Age. He's recently done a fantastic write-ups. I definitely, enjoin you to go check those out. Let's moving on, but let's get events. Of course, there is this lovely event, the Bronze Age of Comics. And one moment.
I am quickly running out of time.
Terribly sorry.
Yeah,
let's roll through.
Yes, let's roll out.
Roll out the barrel. Alex Thomas offers hours in 30 minutes. Tuesday, City of Destiny with Alex Thomas as the player of Crucible, a character in that game. Next is Guardians of Haven Season 2. They didn't unfortunately get to do last week's episode, so it's the same episode 7, Fire Lizards and Forgotten Lairs. I wonder what game that sounds like. Titan City Serials does Fool in the Hill, episode 3, A Combat of Errors. We've got, of course, office hours this Thursday rolling up. Come join us. We have some great discussions there. And finally, Golden Squad's coming out at next Monday. Oh, I put the 10th. It's actually going to be quite considerably after that. I'll double check and get that corrected.
Yeah, that'll be good. 24th.
That would be correct. I'll get that corrected. That's about the long and the short of it. Do you have any questions, any comments, Rotten Tomatoes to throw?
Not. Absolutely not.
To pluck?
No gravies to spill, nothing like that. I just want to say thank you for sharing all the good stuff that's going on in the tank. I want to thank the community for all the contributions that they make. You are just an exemplary bunch of creatives, and I think that's amazing. But I also want to say that I forgot what I was going to say. It
was going to be brilliant. It was going to solve world hunger. Everything was just going to be settled.
What it is. I know what it is.
The Middle East. Whoa,
there's only one thing left to do, and that is to say goodbye.
Bye-bye.